This is the Baymall Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we are back with Reed Dent to explore the next two tests of God's people on the way to Mount Sinai.
That's right. Reed was with us last time when we talked about the manna. Reed, you had something your wife's talked about: bread, leaven, manna.
My wife is very wonderful and talented at many things, including preaching, even I think better than I am at it. So it's my humble pie to admit that. But we've talked at other times on this podcast about her sermon about the leaven, the parable of the leaven. She also has a great sermon on the manna in the wilderness, which I should have thought to reference last time, but I forgot to. But we can link that in the show notes. It's called God Spreads a Table in the Wilderness. She actually gave it when everything was in disarray, like back in 2020 in quarantine, as a word to CCF. So there's that contextual note, but it's a really good sermon. And so if people are looking for something else great to listen to besides this pod, then I would throw Leanne's sermon that way.
Yeah, don't you feel bad, Reed Dent. You're a fine preacher.
Oh.
And it is okay to be the second best preacher in the Dent family. That is okay.
You could really up your ranking, though, if you called it a podcast instead of a pod.
Oh, come on. It's a pod. You know it. Sean Fennessy over at Big Picture calls it a pods, and he's cool, so I'm going to call it a pod.
Definitely not. I don't think so.
Seems like I'm destined to be the second best preacher no matter what company I'm in. Marty?
Oh, zing! Yeah, sure. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. It was yep.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I thought he was talking about me.
Third best.
We got a presentation day, right, Brent?
We do. Yes. Another, a couple little diagrams. Couple diagrams and a picture, I guess I should say.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll do a little fly. We're going to try to get people out of here a little early. We talked for so long in the last episode.
It was good stuff.
A little fly-by review. Yeah, it was. We got the book of Genesis. It basically sets up the background to the story. We meet the family of God, the goodness of creation, invitation to trust. We come up to the narrative of God, which is really this tale of two kingdoms. We've got the story of the Exodus. They come out of Egypt, they cross the Red Sea, and we now are in the middle of the story where they're on their way to Mount Sinai, this 40-day journey in a time of testing. And we suggested in the last episode that the people of God are going to undergo 3 tests. We talked about the first one in the last episode. We want to talk about the next 2 today. The first one is the test of the heart. They're going to be tested their vav, their nefesh, and their meod. Their vav, their nefesh, their meod. The vav is the heart. So in the last episode, we talked about the test of the heart. So the next test we're going to encounter is the test of their nefesh, which is the test of their soul. So what does that look like? Well, if we were to go back and think about the test of the heart, the manna, all of that stuff, there were some rough moments. There were some beautiful moments. But Moses seemed to pick up, like if you were listening to the words of Moses in Exodus 16, Moses seemed to have this understanding that things were headed in a dangerous, they were on a dangerous trajectory. They were in dangerous territory. And I'm not sure that Moses was wrong. And we could actually go to Psalm 78 to hear a little bit of perspective. If we went to another book of the Bible talking about the same period of history, this same story, Psalm 78 maybe gives us some insight into what was happening. And the Psalms, Reed Dent, we know from future seasons, Reed Dent loves the Psalms. I'm going to ask Brent to read a lot of Exodus. So, Reed, how about you give us Psalm 78? And let's just do the middle part, 17 through 31, give or take.
But they continued to sin against him, rebelling in the desert against the Most High. They willfully put God to the test by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a table in the desert?" When he struck the rock, water gushed out, and streams flowed abundantly. But can he also give us food? Can he supply meat for his people? When the Lord heard them, he was very angry. His fire broke out against Jacob, and his wrath rose against Israel. For they did not believe in God or trust in his deliverance. Yet he gave a command to the skies above and opened the doors of the heavens. He rained down manna for the people to eat. He gave them the grain of heaven. Men ate the bread of angels. He sent them all the food they could eat. He let loose the east wind from the heavens and led forth the south wind by his power. He rained meat down on them like dust, flying birds like sand on the seashore. He made them come down inside their camp all around their tents. They ate till they had more than enough, for he had given them what they craved. But before they turned from the food they craved, even while it was still in their mouths, God's anger rose against them. He put to death the sturdiest among them, cutting down the young men of Israel.
So it feels like Psalm 78 has a perspective. It has some commentary, which I would consider to be as inspired as anything. You don't necessarily see it directly in the Exodus narrative itself, but as Psalm 78 goes back to tell it, there's something else going on that I think we do see Moses catching even in the Exodus narrative. And it's this idea that Moses understands it's not just that they're not just talking about survival. They want more than survival. They want God to prove that he can give them what they want. There's something happening here. And Moses starts to say to them, like, hey, we're going to see this in today's passage. You're getting close to the place where you're putting God to it's one thing for God to test us, but you're now starting to test God in a way that is not this beautiful reciprocal life experience together. You're starting to make some demands of God that seem to be putting us in some dangerous territory. Anything you see in that as you think about that, Reed?
In verse 22 in Psalm 78, it talks about how they did not believe in God. And I just noticed that means something very different for them than it means for us. Like we talk about not believing in God as like believing in the existence of God. But for them, and it seems like what really makes God angry here in their disbelief is that they doubt or I think they see it, but they kind of ignore it, God's generosity. And that is what kind of sparks the fire, right? It's that they become, putting him to the test isn't just, will you provide it all? But like, is this it? And we crave, that word crave keeps coming up. They craved it. And they're testing God to see if he will indulge what they are craving. And God gets a little angry.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very well said.
Even the verse right after what you said, in spite of his wonders, they did not believe.
Yeah.
Like they've seen it.
Absolutely. Well, Brent, we should dive right into Exodus. We left off at chapter 17. Start us off and get us going.
The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?"
All right, so apparently Psalm 78 has got some pretty good insight, because the very next thing that happens is they, in fact, do, according to Moses anyway, they are putting God to the test. I remember when Ray taught me this in the desert, he taught the lesson. So this is the test of the nefesh, the soul. And test number 2, and we'll talk some more about this, your soul is, in the Hebrew mind, it's the essence of your being. It's not your body. It's your body and your spirit and your, like today we would use things like our emotions and our intellect and our consciousness, and we would have other words. For them, it would be body and spirit. But your soul is all of it. Like your soul is you. But your soul is also the transcendent idea of you. The part of you that's not just your physicality, but the part of you that's you. I don't know how to talk about this intelligently. Reed, you got better words than I do?
To describe the soul?
Yeah.
No, I fall a little short there.
Yeah.
But I think the word essence is a little new agey maybe, but I think that is right. And if you just think about anybody and think about that kind of quintessential nature of that person and how it's distinct from other persons, I think people can get a picture of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it is every part of you could imagine. It is all of you, your body. And a lot of people think soul and spirit very similar. But in the Hebraic mind, soul and spirit are not the same thing. Your soul is all of you, body and spirit, and your seat of emotions, and your, again, we would say things like consciousness, feelings, everything you can think of that makes you, all of it combined, the sum total of that is your soul. So when God is testing, when there's a test of the soul, what Ray always taught me is they were saying, you don't get me unless you prove it. Like Ray said, what they were doing was sitting in the desert, and Moses was saying, but he's shown you. I know. Make him do it again. But you've experienced it. I know. Make him prove it. Like, we're not going to go one more step unless God does what we say. That is testing. And it's different than, say, Gideon. Like, everybody thinks of the story of Gideon, and he puts the fleece out, and they're like, isn't that the same thing, testing the Lord? No, because Gideon's not saying, unless you do X, I won't move. Gideon was saying, I'm having a hard time believing. help me believe. Help me in my unbelief. He wasn't making a demand of God. He was asking for some kind of reassurance, which we could still critique potentially, but they're not the same thing in the Jewish mind. This is a test of the soul. God, you don't get me unless you do X. That's what's going on here.
Notice that in both of these tests, there is the question, why did you bring us out of Egypt? Like, part of the test seems to be, we liked our former life. You know, there's a looking back with a kind of maybe longing, like it was better there than it is here, as if to doubt like whatever it is that God is leading them into is not as good as even a life in slavery that they had before. Like they keep saying, we had been better that we had died there than had to live here. And yeah, yep.
Seems like rose-colored glasses. Like, how good could it have been?
Yeah.
But I think the difference is they just knew what to expect. They knew what they were going to get. They were going to wake up and they knew what was going to happen, even though it was horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we do the work to connect ourselves to these tests, this is the test where we say, yeah, I'll follow God if he, yeah, God will get me as long as he blank. And we do that sometimes even subconsciously. That's the test of the soul. Does God have you, or does God only have you when he meets your demands? That's the test of the nefesh. Brent, give us a couple more verses.
But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst? Then Moses cried out to the Lord, what am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me.
So Moses ze'ekaz. We've talked about the ze'ekah, I believe, already. The ze'ekah is that cry from those that are in danger, the cry of the oppressed, the cry of those that their lives are being threatened. This is a ze'ekah. I do not think Moses is being dramatic here. Like sometimes when we read this, we're like, oh, Moses. It's not that bad. I think Moses has a legitimate fear and grievance. They are on the verge of stoning me. This is not good, Moses says. And I believe that because of the cry, that it's a ze'ekah that goes up. Moses cries out before God. And so watch what God says. Next verse. Go ahead, Brent.
The Lord answered Moses, go out in front of the people.
Stop.
Do
you see his first words? Moses has a legitimate concern. They're going to kill me. And God's like, yeah, step number one, I want you to go out in front of the people, which in a sense is his own test of the nefesh.
Yeah.
Moses, do I have you? Okay, go. I got you. Go. Your first thing he says, I want you to go out in front of all those people that want to kill you. All right, go ahead.
Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not?
All right, so they go to put God to the test. Moses is freaking out. Moses has this legitimate concern. God tells him, I want you to walk in front of the people. I want you to take your staff. That staff that's been with him all throughout the story symbolizes the authority and the word and the leadership of God. And I want you to take the elders of Israel, all the leaders, and I want you to go to Horeb. Now, Horeb is the same mountain range as Mount Sinai. He's essentially telling them to go to Mount Sinai. They are not there yet. They are, according to some of the closest estimates, 11 miles away. They are potentially as far as 17 miles away. So they are anywhere from, 10 to 20 miles away from Sinai still. So they haven't gotten there yet. God says, I want you to walk in front of the people, take your staff, take the elders. I want you to go to Horeb. Then he says, I will stand before you at the rock. Now, sounds normal in the English. In the Hebrew, it's interesting. I will stand before you. The word for before is the word panim. And panim is the Hebrew word for faces. And so it's interesting to figure out how this, I will stand before you, faces the rock. The Hebrew understanding of this is that he's standing before the rock, in front of the face of the rock. He is between Moses and the mountain. And if anybody's seen the mountains in the Sinai Peninsula, this makes even more sense, because the mountains, they're not like this gentle slope like we would think of in Scotland or the Pacific Northwest. These mountains rise almost directly, like a wall of rock, right out of the ground. So that there would be a face of rock that God would stand before makes perfect sense in this region. And I'm hoping, Brent, that we still have I worked so hard on those original drawings.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes!
Your original drawings will be preserved because
I love
there's
this.
nothing that could top this.
There's nothing that could be better. I worked so hard on this in your presentation, there's a little stick figure Moses.
With a glorious beard.
Glorious beard and a staff in his hand. And a mountain. So there you go. There's the mountain and Moses. And I wanted us to understand where God stands. God stands before Panim, between Moses and the rock. So God's standing between Moses and the rock. And then he tells Moses to strike, or nakah. That word nakah means to smite, to strike in order to kill. Reed, take a couple guesses at what you think. Like, where has this word been used already? To strike, to kill.
I mean, my first thought is in the book of Exodus. Like, is this in the plagues?
It is. God strikes down the gods of Egypt. Nakah. Okay.
Nice.
How about before that?
Before the plagues? Yeah. It's in Moses' backstory.
Yeah.
When he kills the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He nakahs the Egyptian, who is nakahing the Israelite, by the way. It's nakah all over the place. The Israelites, or the slave master is nakahing the Israelite slave. Moses sees it and he nakahs the Egyptian, buries him in the sand. And now God says, I'm going to stand between you and the rock, and you have the stick and you have the elders, and I want you to nakah the rock, the mountain of God, which is a big enough deal. You don't just strike the mountain of God to kill it, but to reinforce the point, the rabbis say, at least my rabbi taught me that the rabbis that he taught him said, you have God standing even before him. So if Moses goes to strike the rock, what are the elders? And I don't know what it looked like, quote unquote, but if God's standing between Moses and the rock, and Moses is striking the rock in order to kill it, what do the elders of Israel see? What are they literally seeing in front of them, Reed? What image do you have?
Moses trying to kill the Holy One of Israel?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to phrase it. Moses is, at God's command, striking the mountain of God, in picture, striking God. This whole thing just screams Jesus. It's the consistent character of God that we've seen on this whole journey. It's the God that will put his bow in the clouds. It's the God that will walk the blood path on our behalf. This is who God has always been through Genesis and Exodus. This is not some angry God. This is a God that's responding to the people, putting him to the test. He should probably respond with a whole bunch of judgment and a bunch of fire from his nostrils and burning everybody up. But it's a God that instead says, Moses, I want you to take the elders. I want you to take them away from the people. And I want the leaders of Israel to learn something about me. I am a God of grace, of love. I'm a God that will take the blow on your behalf, and all the elders get to see this. They get to experience it. They get to yada it, and this becomes a part of their story. This is a test of the nefesh, where they got to show God where they were at. They've got a ways to go, pretty ugly, but they also got to learn something about who God was and why God will be a wonderful steward of our nefesh. So, Brent, keep reading. Let's see what happens when they get back. They get back, should be a great party. Should be the elders coming back. Let me tell you about all the amazing things. They get back. I don't even know if they just walk into camp. What's going on?
The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands.
All right. So they get back and everybody's being attacked by Amalek. The Amalekites. Now, we know from Deuteronomy something about the Amalekites. The Amalekites attacked the weak parts of the camp. If they attacked people that were on a journey, they always attacked the people in the back, because it was the people in the back that were sick, that were weak, that were slow. They were disadvantaged. And so the marginalized always got attacked by the Amalekites. God says, in Deuteronomy, God says, I hate this. I want their name. It's so unjust. It's so wrong. I want their name wiped out of history. God says in the book of Deuteronomy. This is who the Amalekites were. They get back and the Amalekites are attacking. This is, by the way, where later in the book of Numbers, we're told that one of the tribes gets the job of following the back of the pack. It's the tribe of Dan. And we do this on our trips. Brent, Reed, you guys have both had the opportunity to be, we call them the tribe of Dan on our trips. You walk in the back of the line. Yes. What's that like?
I love being Dan. You get to watch out for everybody who's in front of you.
Yep. Anything you feel like you miss out on?
Listening to whatever you're saying.
Yeah. Being Dan is...
I can't hear.
Yeah, that's right. Being Dan is cool, but being Dan also has its drawbacks. And Dan gets this assignment in Numbers, I think it's Numbers 12, 10, somewhere in there. Dan gets the assignment of bringing up the rear because God says, I don't want the people that are sick, that are weak to lag behind. I want them to be in the middle of the pack. One of the things that my rabbi taught me was you will always know whether or not you're looking at a community of shalom or a community of empire based on where you find the weak and the marginalized. Where do you find the people who don't have enough, who don't have as much as everyone else? Are they on the fringes? Then I know that I'm dealing with empire. Are they on the bottom? Is everything being built on their backs? That's empire. Or are they in the middle? Are the wagons circled around them? Because if I find the weak and the marginalized in the middle of the community, then I know I have the community of God's shalom. And they learned this day in this test of the Mayod. The test of the Mayod. Mayod, we've heard Mayod before. Brent, where does Mayod come up?
In Genesis 1.
What is it? What's the phrase?
That things were good.
Yeah. How good?
Very good.
Very good. Tov Mayod. The word Mayod means very. Tov is good. Mayod is very. Tov Mayod, very good. This is the test of their Mayod. They're very. These tests, by the way, come from something called the Shema. There's a Shema prayer. We actually teach all of our students something called the Jesus Shema, which, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Ve'ahavta et Adonai, b'klo levavka. There's that word vav, levavcha. Uvakol nafshecha, nafshecha, with all your soul. Uvakol meodeaka, meodeaka, with all your very. So love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your very. It's weird to translate it very, so we say things like might. It simply means with all your resources, with whatever you have to offer. So they get back, and they're in the middle of this third test, the test of their mayod, the test of their very. Are they going to use their resources? Are they going to use their strength? Are they going to use everything they have to protect the weak? What are they going to do? And so they get back. Go ahead and keep reading, Brent.
So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner."
Adonai Nasi in the Hebrew. The Lord is my banner. This is this third test, the test of their very, the test of their might, the test of their strength. Will they love the Lord their God with all their strength? They've been tested. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. They were just tested. Love the Lord your God with all your soul. Now, how will they respond? Love the Lord your God with all your very, with all your strength, with all your might. There's actually an interesting rabbinical commentary that comes to play here. Read. I don't know if you have access to the ESV, but could you read Exodus 17:9, the first part of that verse in the ESV, because it translates it a little differently than Brent's version did.
So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek."
All right, that's good enough. It said, choose for us. That phrase for us in the Hebrew, according to the rabbis, is very, very important. That idea of choose for us. It kind of got translated away in the NIV. Is that true, Brent? New NIV didn't really have that.
Yeah, it says, choose some of our men.
Choose some of our men. And yet that phrase, for us, the rabbis say, and the rabbis say you can move that phrase around. Is it choose for us men who will fight? Or, the rabbis say, is it choose men who will fight for us? Not just for themselves. Choose men who will fight for us, the corporate community. The Midrash actually connects us to the story of Gideon in a really cool way. It says the reason that God chose, remember the story of Gideon, we haven't gotten there yet, but if you're familiar with the story of Gideon, there's thousands of soldiers, they send a bunch home, there's still too many, and so they send them down to the water to drink. And Reed, can you remember the story? What tell us about? They go down to they've already gotten rid of some soldiers. There's still too many. They go down to drink, and what happens?
I could be way off here. I haven't read the story in forever. Is this where they storm the camp and are they like yelling and screaming?
That's going to be after they actually choose the men. So this is where they're choosing the final group of like 300 men.
Oh, yeah. You're going to have to remind me here.
Okay, so they get down and they go down and God says, watch them drink. And we're told that some people go down and they drink like a dog. They put their head in the water, they lean over the bank, and they drink like a dog. They lap water out of the stream. Some men take their hands and they drink out of their hands. And the rabbi said they drank out of their hands because they were trying to get out of the way for all the other people that needed to drink. And those are the people that get. And the rabbis, the Midrash connected this idea and said, those are men who will fight for us. They're not just thinking about themselves, but they're thinking about other people. They're taking care of others. They have this hospitable, protective, I'm going to take care of the people in need. Let me get my water and get out of the way. That's the same concept they said happened here. Go find men who will fight for us, not for them, but for us, for those of us that need it. And the rabbis say that's what they were learning, and that's what you're seeing. Because what's the story of Moses? Well, he has his arms up in the air. It's about his strength. It's about his might. It's about his his arms are tired. And the whole story is about Aaron and Hur, and they come and they hold his arms up. Because it's about how we help other people. The rabbis keep reinforcing this is the message of the story of how God wants us to learn how to use our might, our mayod, our strength, use it for the larger community, use it for those that have need of it, take care of those who don't have it, use your strength for other people, use it to fight for others. And so we have, by the way, Brent, we recorded, because one of the things we do with all of our students, we did this with our college students way, way back. Once we got to this point in our study, we started every single class with what we called the Jesus Shema. And so we have episode 21B is basically a really short little episode where we've recorded the Jesus Shema. It's not the full Shema. The full Shema in the Jewish faith is like a long prayer. It's a big chunk it's 2 chunks out of Deuteronomy, a chunk out of Numbers. It's a big, long prayer. That's the Shema. We do a shortened version called the Jesus Shema. And that's all that it is. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha. B'kol levavcha. Uv'kol nafshecha. Uv'kol meodecha. Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. Why do we call it the Jesus Shema? Because that was the 2 greatest commands that Jesus gave in the Gospels.
That's what we call it, or would other people know that prayer by?
That's what I've always called it. I don't know if I've heard other people say it. I wouldn't be surprised at all, but that's what I've always called it. I've called it the Jesus Shema. But Moses will name this place Adonai Nasi, the Lord is my banner. In the presentation, there's a picture there of what the banners looked like in their world. They're used to these flags, these markers, these banners. They usually are arranged on city gates. The picture there shows an Egyptian city gate where the banners, these city gates would stand 40 feet tall, and the banners go up to 60 feet. And so you would see these banners before you even saw the city. If you were sailing into the harbor of Egypt, you would see these banners, we're told by the historians. You would see them first, and you knew that if you were looking towards the banner's not the point. It's what lies right behind the banner. Right behind that city gate is the temple. Right behind that banner is where the God resides. The banner always points the way to where the God is. So Moses goes up on a hill, and he holds his staff up. It's not a magic trick about his staff being in the air. It's a reminder to all those people fighting, not for themselves, but for others, where that true sustenance comes from. The God that truly provides sits behind the banner. So Moses called that place Adonai Nasi because God sat behind his staff. If you looked up and saw Moses, you saw the banner, you saw his staff in the sky, but you weren't looking at Moses. You were looking at what lied beyond Moses, which was God. And you knew that God wanted you to fight for other people, that God wanted you to take care of those who were being abused and taken advantage of and exploited and crushed. And so that was this reminder, and that's why that story works. So that's that last image that I almost forgot about it. That's that last image in your presentation today, and the reason why Moses called it Adonai Nasi. Did I miss anything else? What do you guys got? Anything?
Yeah, it just occurs to me that all three of these tests that we've talked about now are in some way kind of the same test, looking for the same thing, because what we talked about with the wells or the springs, what we talked about with gathering much and little, and here what we're talking about with the vulnerable community in the middle being protected. I mean, it seems like all of these tests are actually kind of testing the same thing, which is what the community is doing with those who can't do for themselves. And it makes perfect sense, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you think about what is going to happen to the people, what they're going to be made into at Sinai when we get there, it makes perfect sense that God is testing to see, like, what is in their heart. What do I know about you? Are you the kind of people that can be this thing that I'm going to make you? Makes sense that these would be the tests for what they're going to be made into, but I don't want to spoil that. We'll leave it for Sinai.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. This is why the Shema is so meaningful to me. Because I love how these two things go together. Love the Lord your God with all your vav, with all your nefesh, with all your mayod, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you're loving God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might, then you will take care of all those around you. It was a part of every single test they went through. The communal aspect, gathering manna for other people, letting the weak and the marginalized go first, seeing a God that's willing to lay down his life on behalf of others, then going back and getting a chance to do that for your fellow Israelite who's being crushed. That is it. It's loving God and loving others. It's loving God and it's loving others. It's loving God and it's loving others. And I just love that. So I think that's it. Brent, it's always a great time to remind. I love teaching this Jesus Shema because that's what we used to always do with our students. Like this is, Reed works in campus ministry as well. Reed is over at Truman State University with CCF, Campus Christian Fellowship, and he works with college students too. We work with college students at Impact Campus Ministries. This is what we do. We try to pass this on and teach this. We try to give practices. I used to love teaching Jesus Shema. It was just one of my favorite things because then every class from here on out for the next 2 years, we'd start by standing together and reciting Shema together, and it just became a part of our practice. And it's just one of those opportunities that we have to spread that vision. If you know any college students around you, if you've got young adults that you can disciple, I just can't imagine spending your time in any better way. And using all of your resources and your mayod to do that with the young adults that you have around you. And I suppose we could say, if we're talking about resources, if you wanted to support the work of campus ministry, we've dropped that plug before. We kind of do it here and there along the way. But one of the things we're trying to do with Bema is get this in the hands of college students. And if you want to support the ability for Brent or I or Reed to help us with the podcast or any of those things, and we can give our lives to this and support our families in a way that this is a thing that we get to get up every day and do. We love that opportunity, and we want to do that with more and more young people. And if you want to do that, you can always find ways to support us. Little monthly gifts, big one-time gifts, all the stuff comes together to make this thing happen. And it's been something pretty cool to be a part of. So if you wanted to help us and support us in that way, we would welcome it.
Yeah, it's been a good episode. Definitely check out the show notes. Check out that presentation if you haven't had a chance to look at that. I think the image of the banner is really helpful. Marty's drawing of Moses standing at the rock, like, it's helpful to understand like what was going on there. Like, look at that, read back over the text, look at it again. Is that what you were imagining? and it really helps these stories come alive. So check out the presentation if you haven't had a chance. That's in the show notes or at BamaDiscipleship.com.
I should say I don't necessarily think that God is a red squiggly line, but I didn't want to try to draw God. That seemed very sinful to me. So that's just how I represented where he stood. But if anybody's like, did you really think God's a red squiggly line? No.
It was a good try.
It's just the passing shadow, the back of God.
There you go. It's where God was. I love that.
But all of that's on the website. You can use the contact page to get in touch. You can check out the news page to see where we're going to be and what's going on today, even as you're listening to this. But thanks for joining us on the Bema podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.
Hi, I'm Grace Heisman, a Bema listener in Yorktown, Indiana, and here's the prayer from episode 21's companion. God, in spite of your wonders and miracles, there are days where we don't believe. Yet, you remain the rock and the banner before us. Help us to always remember that our strength and might comes from you. Continue to remind us and show us. May we love you with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might, and love our neighbors as ourselves. Amen.